In this video, I will be taking an in-depth look at both the original Resident Evil 2 and the recent remake, comparing scenes and their intention. As a result, there will be spoilers, as well as criticism and opinions that not everyone may agree with. This is not a review. For the record, Resident Evil 2 is not a bad game. I enjoy it and you're free to enjoy it too. If you haven't seen the last 2 chapters, that's fine. This video can be understood without having seen those. Besides, even though people loved Chapter 1, there were even more people who hated Chapter 2. Before I begin, I have to address some misconceptions people had about that last video. It'll only take a minute, but if it doesn't have anything to do with you, then you may want to click the timecode in the description to skip ahead to the beginning of Chapter 3. Alright, here we go. My last video was about how I felt the remake of Resident Evil 2 was unable to maintain the original game's overall intention and recapture the spirit. That video was taken the wrong way, and I can understand why. I caught a lot of people off guard with that claim. I jumped the gun by analyzing the development of the game without first establishing any real criticism of the game itself. I was incorrect in my assumption that more people would be as disappointed as I was about not actually receiving a spiritual remake. While I had a lot of people agree with me in private, many of you didn't, and I shouldn't have spoke for everyone. I meant no disrespect towards anyone watching, nor any of the developers involved. Even though it was not the remake I expected, I have to say, the game we did end up with ended up being alright. There was also a huge misunderstanding about what I was trying to say about fixed camera angles. With people being so negative about them lately, I found an opportunity in my last video to defend them, and I guess I ended up going overboard a little bit. I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to say that fixed camera angles are necessary in a Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 7 was released only a few years ago and it managed to capture the spirit of Resident Evil perfectly despite it being in first person. I was trying to rationalize that not all, but much of the reason the original game's intention was lost had to do with changing the camera perspective. One would have to agree that in changing the entire point of view of a game, it would have a different point of view, metaphorically. With the remake changing the point of view from one extreme to the other, it makes sense that the more subtle intentional designs revolving around the camera direction would be lost in translation, or changed to take better advantage of the new viewpoint, which is fine. In a reimagining, that is completely okay and understandable. To analytically decipher the spirit of Resident Evil 2 and remain objective was not an easy task. It caused me a lot of headaches to understand what that missing ingredient was, and then even more headaches to put that into words. In my attempt, I ended up with a formula that sounded too biased. But now, with this video, I think I can properly explain what that spirit is. And it's alright if you want to disagree, because what that spirit is highly subjective. And what I got out of the original game may not be what you got out of it. Like the story, music, or its missing enemies. A lot of people seem pretty hung up on those things, but they never really crossed my mind. What this reimagining of Resident Evil 2 is truly lacking is not something tangible like that. It's not something you can see. It's far deeper than that. It's easy to get lost in its shiny new presentation and immersive atmosphere. It blinds us from the absence of an essential feeling, something unique to Resident Evil. This is what Resident Evil 2 is really missing.
Welcome back.
Resident Evil 2 has a lot of charm. Just about everyone who has played it has taken away something very personal or nostalgic. Seems every fan has their own bucket list of what they love the most about it, and that's for good reason, due to its very unique atmosphere. What I love the most is how it manages to contrast bright, colorful graphics and a warm, inviting soundtrack with these tense survival horror mechanics. The story was alright too, because it managed to convey a lot of information in a small amount of time, and the acting is not as bad as I remembered. I really appreciate the high replayability of the game too, with even more unexpected surprises in Scenario B. There's a lot for everyone to love about Resident Evil 2. But the reason I play Resident Evil 2 is the same exact reason I play all survival horror games: to have my survival skills tested. The game builds the atmosphere and the unexpected scenarios, and trusts me completely to learn the gameplay and survive. The gratification I get is through making good decisions and surviving the impossible. Leon! After all, isn't that what survival horror is all about? While I feel like the remake of Resident Evil 2 is lacking a large amount of the original game's spirit, most of that I can ignore, accept, or even appreciate in a reimagining. What I simply cannot ignore, no matter how hard I try, is the lack of something essential to the entire series. It was lost with Resident Evil 5 and 6, but rekindled again in Resident Evil 7 only 2 years ago, which proves Capcom still has it in them. But now, with Resident Evil 2, it's missing again. The original developers called this element the fear. For the lack of a better term, Shinji Mikami, the original series creator, described it as that feeling you get when confronted by a deadly animal.
The feeling that we tried hardest to get across was the fear that people get from dangerous living creatures.
Essentially, it's that fight-or-flight response to the horrors throughout the game. It's that adrenaline-pumping feeling you get when you encounter something dangerous, and the rash decisions you have to make regarding your survival. Whether it be booking it the hell out of Dodge, or spamming bullets like the last person left alive in a Counter-Strike match. The original Resident Evil 2 strung together moments of these unpredictable encounters in waves to build lots of suspense and tension. With these life or death situations, your primal instincts are challenged, and the game leaves it up to you to come up with a strategy in the heat of the moment. To lessen the strain on your nerves, you learn to always plan ahead whenever you get the chance, taking notes of signs of danger and possible escape routes, making room in your inventory for the resources to help you get through it.
With Resident Evil, I wanted to create the fear. To have people feel fear even when an enemy is nowhere to be seen. The paranoia of, is the enemy on its way, or is it already here? People amplify that terror within their own imaginations. That was my intention with the fear.
With that said, I didn't feel the remake was designed around the same concept. Save for a few moments, it lacked the unpredictable nature of the fear. It didn't feel like the same kind of build and suspense and tension, and it certainly didn't stay with me throughout the majority of the experience as with the original game. While definitely challenging at times, there weren't any moments that challenged my survival skills in any new or unexpected ways. It was always like, oh, another zombie. How do I deal with this one? Now I can see why enemies like the crows and the giant moth were not even included. These encounters worked with the concept of the fear to mix things up and keep things fresh, so nothing became too routine. Without that concept, encounters like these wouldn't have the same effect. The alligator fight was almost cut out of the remake completely, but fans were insistent about keeping it in. With the way it turned out, maybe it should have been.
What the hell?
I think this scene serves as pretty damn good proof of how the intention has changed.
Ugh.
Rather than being a tense, spur-of-the-moment test of player intuition, this fight-or-flight situation is now a couple scripted moments where your actions are already decided for you by the game.
Get out of there!
In the original alligator fight, where you would naturally think to run away from the creature because, oh shit! The remake already sets it up for you to run, in a level taken straight out of Crash Bandicoot. Spin! Leon, spin before you get to the crates. Ah, damn it. Who am I kidding? He's no Bandicoot.
Holy shit!
Where you would have to come up with a strategy in order to lure it into an explosive decapitation. Oh man, that was awesome. The remake already sets it up for you to shoot the most ridiculous explosive gas line set piece I've ever seen in a video game. Awfully convenient. The remake takes away all that strategy and challenge by setting us up the bomb for us. After the run sequence, right away it gets stuck gnawing on it. Gee, if I can't figure out what I need to do now, there's no hope for me, Capcom. No!
I wanted to let the player fight the fear in their own way. And when a critical, desperate situation arose, I wanted the player to be able to blow the enemy to pieces.
I'd say the majority of the game plays out much like this, only not as apparent. The fear uses the player's own survival instincts to create tension. Tension that cannot be accomplished without giving the player the freedom of choice, not the illusion of choice. What is missing in Resident Evil 2 is the player's ability to respond to situations in their own way. That kind of responsibility is a big part of that signature Resident Evil dread. The remake's lack of trust in the player is written all over the game. It narrows down the options for survival, occasionally holding the player's hand, and makes nearly all the decisions for them. As a result of this and other changes, this concept is gone, and along with that, the staple Resident Evil horror. In the following section, I will analyze the differences between the original Resident Evil 2 and the reimagining's opening scenes, which are crucial in setting expectations for the player. Through these comparisons, I think I could show you just how much the intention has changed. Because much of the intention is subliminal, we'll analyze these three areas: tone, intent, and message. I call it TIM. The tone is the mood and atmosphere set by the scene. The intent is what I believe it sought to establish. It'll be my best guess. Because other than the original developers, no one can say for sure the true meaning behind a scene. The message is the overall message conveyed to the player. And again, this is my point of view. Like art, everyone may have their own interpretations of it. Through this, perhaps I can get right down to the bottom of it all and prove what Resident Evil 2 is missing.
Looks like we're walking from here.
Let's start with the very introduction of the two games. Just to jog your memory, here's what I said about the original Resident Evil 2 in the first chapter. Immediately, you're thrown into an intense moment with no grasp of the controls and no ammo, surrounded by zombies and fire. You have no other choice but to run straight into them until you die. All the camera angles are facing you, so you have no idea where you're going or what you're going to run into. It teaches you its gameplay the way I was taught to ride a bike. No brakes, no helmet, and push down a hill, hitting every branch along the way. After all this hardship, getting to the police station was like a breathtaking moment of respite. After multiple close encounters, you barely make it by dragging your bum-ass leg through these pearly gates. This entire introduction is crucial for setting the tone for the rest of the game, and it perfectly captures the fear. It prepares you by putting your survival skills to the test. It teaches you to play smart, running from danger whenever possible, and fighting when you have no other choice, due to your short supply of ammo. By the time you make it to the RPD, you're better prepared for whatever unpredictable moment the game will throw at you next. How does the remake handle the same scene in the introduction?
Just relax and play.
All right.
Instead of from the front, zombies come at you from behind. All you have to do is turn around and walk away. Literally, walk the entire way to the RPD without a single problem. And yes, even on hardcore difficulty. To top it off, it only takes a few minutes to get there, being far shorter than the original. All the zombies, all the way to the station, are not a threat. The ones you do encounter are usually facing away from you, while others are distracted by something else. There are some on the ground, triggered to get up as soon as you get near them, but aren't meant to be a threat really. The introduction seems to be meticulously designed for the player to take in the surrounding danger without actually being in any real danger. Instead of establishing the intensity of the situation through the gameplay, where you better yourself as a player, they show you that intensity through explosions, fire, and zombies pouring out of a school bus.
It's like the end of the world.
And trust me, it is tension-filled. This
is survival horror at its best.
Yeah, that's her. They got some good zombie voice acting in there.
This elaborate, eye-catching scene does a fantastic job making you believe you're in a tense situation, when you're really not. It's just a bunch of set pieces in a level designed to be conveniently accommodating to the player, despite its chaotic nature.
What the hell is up with you?
You know, it really reminds me of Scenario B's introduction in the original game. But the second playthrough doesn't count. The first experience is where it matters most. I believe the original developer's intention was to allow the player to become more self-sufficient, where you better yourself through some trial and error and learn not only the controls, but how to adapt. I feel everything about this opening scene was meticulously designed for that reason.
Hold on.
To trust the player to think, learn, adapt, and grow through adversity, and survive. The intention behind these two scenes is now the opposite, going from implementing the suspense in the gameplay to just showing it. Going from trusting and allowing the player to make mistakes and learn from them, to guiding the player through a linear level of scripted action sequences.
Wait, what is that?
My interpretation is off a little.
Before this scene in the remake, you do play a portion at a gas station that is more like your standard fare, modern-day tutorial, to teach the player the controls and prepare them for the streets.
It is tension-filled.
Trust me.
This already defeats the original intention of allowing the player to learn on their own. These objectives, too. Explore your surroundings. I don't understand why they felt the need to put objectives in this game, as you can't get lost.
But maybe one potential negative is when you might get lost.
Oh. You walk in and the game tells you to investigate the store, but there's not much to investigate. Not like you can binge out on the freezer full of herb ice cream because herbs heal you. And it's not like the old games. You can't necessarily examine your environment with the action button. So what do?
Oh, man.
You head straight to the back of the store.
Nothing out here.
One potential negative is when you might get lost.
You all right?
This wounded guy here gives you further directions on where to go, as if it's not clear enough.
Don't move. I'll be back for you. Waste of time.
In the back room, you encounter a scene with a zombie that's much like the first game. Only, instead of giving the player the freedom of choosing their battle, the remake incentivizes combat by throwing a gun at you and pitting you against the zombie in a claustrophobic encounter. This is unlike the encounter with the zombie in Resident Evil 1. You can fight it, or let Barry take care of it.
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this. Headshot.
Or as Chris, you just leave it there and deal with it when you have a gun. Yeah, you don't even have a gun. You do have a knife, but you certainly can try using it. Isn't that how you learn? The zombie encounter in the first game trusts you, as a player, to pick your battles wisely. If you tried going after Green Baldy here with only a knife, then you probably won't be doing that again. In Resident Evil 2, the game has already decided for you that you are going to fight this monster. but it's not incorrect in its message. When it comes to zombies in this game, fighting is usually the best option. Best to deal with them now so they don't end up a problem later. Once dispatched, you find a key and the game tells you to escape from the store. Once again, it is telling you what you need to be doing rather than allowing you the freedom to choose on your own. These objectives aren't off by default. I'm just playing the game the way it was made to be played. If it wants to hold my hand, then why not let it?
Come on, I want you to stay with me. Sherry!
What's wrong, Claire?
Wait, Sherry.
No,
Stop it.
I won't.
Sherry, stop it.
Claire?
Sherry, wait here.
Okay, but...
Stay here.
Okay.
Sherry's in serious trouble.
Claire?
I like what Rebecca does with her hand a lot better.
Excuse me, Chris.
What, Rebecca?
I saw you in the garden. I've caught up with you at last.
Hey, what is that?
What?
We're partners, aren't we?
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Well, I'm really sorry. Would you like me to?
What?
You'd do the same for me, wouldn't you?
Of course not.
You aren't mad at me about all
Rebecca,
that.
get the hell out of here!
I'd like to stay here a little bit longer.
Upon trying to leave, you encounter a bunch of scripted zombie encounters. Where did these zombies even come from? They weren't there before. I know that one guy was there, but where the hell did the rest come from? How did a zombie get behind this barricaded area? There wasn't even a corpse or anything there before. No, really, I checked. Man, it's just like The Walking Dead all over again. Upon escape, you may even be grabbed and bitten so that the game could show off its dazzling new zombie bite animation. To top things off, you're not penalized for taking any damage here, as you can take around 5 chomps to the neck, be on danger, and the game will fully heal you in the cutscene.
Thanks, partner.
Giving you a fresh start once you get to the streets.
What? What's going on in this town?
Lose, big guy.
Thanks, game. Thanks. Can you imagine having to limp all the way to the RPD with your health on danger? Well, this is what it looks like.
It is one potential negative. This is tension filled. This is tension. Trust me. It is tension filled. When you might get lost. It is lost. Potential. Trust me. It is. Trust me. This is. Trust me. It is. This is survival horror at its best.
God, man up, Leon. You're acting like you were bitten 9 times before getting here. Oh, you were? I find that hard to believe. Damn, son! You weren't kidding. Now tell me, why aren't you a zombie? Because if you were bitten, and I mean, it's okay. I could take you into a room and we can handle this quietly.
I'll be okay. This bullet wound isn't making things any easier.
This scene makes decisions for you and holds your hand throughout. It tells you where to go, when to fight, and when to run, and even fully heals you at the end. On the other hand, Resident Evil 1 zombie encounter gave you the fear, the option of fight or flight. Do I shoot it down or save ammo and let Barry take care of it?
Let me take care of this.
Use the knife and die, or come back later when I have a gun and more ammo. Unlike the intent in both Resident Evil 1 and the original Resident Evil 2, the reimagining does not trust you as a player to think for yourself, make mistakes, and learn from them. With the fear being absent in the remake, the game is usually making the decisions that you should be making on your own, such as in the tutorial. In that, the game makes it abundantly clear to shoot the zombies, unless it wants you to run away from them. If you don't do what the game tells you to do and act like a smartass, you'll wind up in a world of hurt. I can tell you from experience, as that happened to me, and I wasn't happy. Much later in the game, there's a small holding area with zombies trapped inside of jail cells. Going by what I've learned from previous Resident Evil games, I anticipated the cell doors opening. So I made the hard decision to spend the last of my ammo, eliminating as many zombies as I could while they were still locked up and not a threat to me. This backfired on me greatly when the doors flew open. Not only did they throw even more zombies at me that weren't even there before to begin with, they threw the Terminator at me.
Give me a break.
I had no ammo, zombies I didn't anticipate, and now Steel Armstrong. As a result, I was punished hard for what I thought was a smart, precautionary decision to better my odds at survival. I ended up reloading my save just to get my ammo back and play the game their way.
What are they after?
You don't have to play smart, learn, adapt, and better yourself as a player when the game is a tailored experience that tells you what to do and when to do it. I betrayed the game by planning ahead, and was punished for it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please look forward to more. Hopefully I didn't piss anyone off here, like my last one. Oh boy. Big thanks to my supporters on Patreon. These people aren't just patrons, they are friends. They're not just friends, they're my only friends. If you'd like to support me as well, I'd be eternally grateful, as I could certainly use all the help I can get. I would appreciate it. You could check out the previous chapters of this anthology of Resident Evil 2 videos. Start with Chapter 1 and move your way on up. Adios, amigos.